we will not hold our normal social time breakout chat rooms today. And we'll do another Q&A time after the service next Sunday. First off, I want to announce that for the month of August, we will be holding our own Sunday morning GNH book club. And we will be looking at the book White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. For the first 3 Sundays, I will offer a brief message, much shorter than normal, and then we'll go into a time of discussion. And on the 4th Sunday, Michael Tacey will be doing the same. And on the 5th Sunday, there are 5 Sundays in August, we will be having a talk about discussion on any matter that you want to discuss related to the book, but most of all, perhaps what we have all learned from the book. I encourage you to get a copy of the book. You can download a digital copy or get one from the library if you're able to. Apparently there are long waiting lists. You can purchase one from Amazon. I think it's approximately $10, either a download version or a paperback copy. A donor, member of the church, has very generously donated 4 copies that are on a first-come, first-served basis by anyone in the church. Please contact Sue Klein, myself, or Adrienne Campbell in the office if you'd like a copy. And Adrienne will make it available for you to safely be able to pick up from the church. Let's see, our next announcement, we'll be doing this for the next couple of weeks, and I hope you don't get too tired of it, but our annual auction, as all of you know, needed to be postponed from the spring, and we will now be holding an online annual auction, our first ever, this coming September into early October. A Zoom party will be on Saturday, September 26th, in which how the procedures for bidding and whatever online bidding will take place. Bidding will last a full week until the next Saturday, October 3rd. And again, please put that date in your calendars. And you're also welcome to invite friends to be a part of the auction. And we just ask that you get Betsy Anderson or Alan Garrison the contact information for that friend. Donations are still being accepted for the auction. They will be accepted up until or up through August 10th. After that date, they can no longer accept any more donations. But if you do have something you'd like to donate, please do so up until August 10. Gift certificates are especially asked for. Let's see here. Do take a look in the announcements, thoughts and prayers. Individuals there to keep in your care and concern and perhaps contact as you needed. Ongoing announcement that I continue to encourage and strongly encourage one and all to keep in touch with members of your GNH support group. Each support group has approximately 10 people in it. And this is a way for us to perhaps connect with people in the congregation who we don't know. All we're asking is take an hour or 2 at the most a month just to contact a few people in your support group. And I especially encourage contacting by telephone. That is perhaps a more personal way to connect with somebody than an email or a text. I'm also very happy to arrange a particular support group Zoom time, and several have been held. Usually been doing those as a happy hour type of format, and those can be fun and meaningful. It's not church talk. Usually it's just about what various people are doing in their lives. So again, I encourage you strongly, stay in touch with members of your support group. last but not least, in terms of GNH announcements, I encourage you to take a look at the announcement page. The last announcement on that insert is about asking for members to volunteer for the UU the Vote effort. GNH will be involved in a postcard campaign, getting out to people who may not be registered to vote and encouraging them to do so. There are also opportunity to participate by calling individuals and encouraging them to register to vote. If you are interested in doing this, and it all can be done from the safety of your home, if you are interested in participating in this, please contact either Jack Brennan or Carol Wolmendorf. And I do have, I think, a fun announcement this morning. I think it was already briefly said during our in-gathering before the service began, but today is one of our members' birthday. John McLeod's 96 years young today, and we do applaud him. And Michael, would you just, yes, Michael, would you just do a quick happy birthday for John?
Yes, sure. Hold on, let me get my guitar.
Celebrating 96 years young to you, John. Whenever you're ready, Michael.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear John. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you all, and congratulations, John. Let us now begin the spiritual part of our service with the lighting of our chalice. Michael?
Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy.
Thank you, Michael. As another very quick announcement, in an effort to keep our Zoom Sunday services as fresh and original and hopefully different from week to week as possible, we're asking any of you who may be interested in video recording yourself or your family, you and your family, lighting a candle or a chalice and getting that recording to me, which will then be played at a future service. We have one family lined up to do so next week, so we can hopefully all look forward to that. Let us now go into a time where we can prepare our hearts and minds for what we will hear and receive this morning with this morning's prelude music piece. Michael will be playing Prelude in C minor by Chopin.
sorry, guys. The audio was messed up on that. I'm not sure why, but I'll try to fix it for the next one.
Thank you, Michael. Well, it doesn't give you a whole lot of time to fix the audio issues, but maybe you have a recording of our hymn together, first hymn together this morning, number 112 in your hymnals, Do You Hear? I believe the lyrics will be posted on your screen so that all may participate in singing at your home.
They will.
Michael?
Guys, I'm sorry. I think I got it.
I'm sorry, Michael, what did you say?
Okay, I got it. Here we go.
Okay.
Do you hear, oh my friend, in the place where you stand, through the sky, through the land? Do you hear, in the heights on the plain, in the vale on the main, in the sun, in the rain? Do you hear, through the roll, through the rush, through the throng, through the crush? Do you hear in the hush of your soul, hear the cry, fear won't still, hear the heart's call to will, hear a sigh, startling thrill in your soul, from the place where you stand to the outermost strand. Do you hear, oh my friend? Do you hear all the dreams, all the dares, all the sights, all the prayers? They are yours, mine, and theirs. Do you hear? Do you hear?
Thank you, Michael. And if everyone, or at least all members of the gathering in Northern Hills, join me in reciting our unison affirmation together. We seek to create a welcoming community that celebrates human diversity, encourages spiritual growth, fosters responsiveness to our world, and commits to the future of all children. Thank you, one and all. It's now my great privilege to introduce to you our speaker this morning. Speaker is a longtime member of the former Northern Hills Fellowship, where that fellowship sponsored him as a minister in training. And he has also been, for the past 6 years, a member of the gathering in Northern Hills. We welcome this morning our member Joel Araujo, as he will speak on the topic, Quarantine During Lockdown, Experiences of the Children's Home of Northern Kentucky. Welcome, Joel, and thank you for being with us this morning as a speaker.
Thank you. You know, I think every profession has their own shorthand. If you go into a Waffle House and you hear a waitress yell to the cook, "Pull 1 bacon," well, they're actually telling the cook to take 3 strips of bacon out of the refrigerator and cook it up until it's fairly crispy. At a hospital or a medical facility, if a code blue is called, that means that a patient is suffering from cardiac or respiratory arrest. Similarly, if you're at a residential facility and you hear a staff person yell, 5 seconds, it means that there's an event or some other type of emergency that's occurred, and that all residents have exactly 5 seconds to clear the premises and return to their room or bunk until the situation returns to normal. While that particular shorthand was used by other staff members at the Children's Home of Northern Kentucky, I attempt to only use that command when it's absolutely necessary, due to the severity and seriousness that it conveys. And luckily, I've only had to give it once. Oh, and to those of you that are worried through this introduction that this is a woe is me, woe is society sermon, don't worry. This is a message of hope. This late last year, I realized that my family needed a father with a full-time income, as well as, and perhaps more importantly, medical benefits. Be that as it may, I still wanted a job where I could bring our denomination's first and second principles, the worth and dignity of every person, and justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, to the fore. Before too long, I applied to a youth residential facility / orphanage called the Children's Home of Northern Kentucky, otherwise known by its acronym CHNK, or by using somewhat questionable phonics, CHUNK. During my walk-through interview at CHUNK, the house manager was impressed by my work as a chaplain, as well as my work with the developmentally disabled. He told me that both of those aspects of my resume were going to help me a lot when dealing with young and teenage boys. And to this day, I don't know if he was on the square or making a very ill-conceived joke. So I was offered a position, and the position was that of, it had a vague and odd title, Residential Treatment Specialist. Now, not having the privilege of being picky, I accepted. Now, CHUNK has 2 campuses. The primary facility is in Covington. It's a large, beautiful, converted Victorian-style mansion that's either directly in Devou Park or, at the very least, immediately adjacent to it. That facility houses mainly short-term placements. They're there either due to psychiatric review, maybe drug issues. Due to its beautiful aesthetics, as well as the surrounding environment, the Covington campus receives most of the community's attention, and henceforth, most of the organization's resources. I, however, wasn't going to be working at the Covington campus. I was going to be working at the Burlington campus, located in a renovated camping lodge just south of the greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky airport, and surrounded by a gated 12-foot tall fence. The Burlington facility houses CHUNK's long-term residents, boys who've had major shifts in their parents / guardians, as well as boys who have been convicted of crime in juvenile court and were deemed by the judge, for whatever reason, to be ill-suited for traditional detention. My first night there, a 7-year-old bit me. Don't worry, it was just an honest introduction to the education that would come. Now, for the first 2.5 months, I learned the ropes. While bad behavior was punished by a forfeiture of privileges, good behavior, or what CHUNK like to call following the program, saw fulfillment of certain luxuries that any American teenage boy may receive. An hour of playing Minecraft on the Xbox One, the option of choosing the movie that we're going to see on Friday night, or extra time practicing their jump shot on the basketball court that's right next to our parking lot. However, there was one carrot that, with few exceptions, ensured that even the most angst-ridden, rebellious young male will comply with house rules. And with trips to Walmart, the movie theater, and most importantly, the local YMCA, opportunities to go out into the community were numerous. And while the technicalities of the job were stressful, I never liked taking the role of a big bad authority figure. Very often, there was a genuine sense that I was contributing to the lives of these young men in a positive way. It took time, but I've built the reputation that I'm tough but fair, and that if you ask me a question, I'm going to give you a straight answer. So while the boys were getting to know me, I were getting to know them. There's a boy that I'll call Boone. He's a 7-year-old whose parents are currently incarcerated, and whose current guardians are also experiencing a difficulty necessitating him to be retrieved. There's one I'll call Adam. He's a 15-year-old who can't stay at the juvenile detention center in Ashland after stealing a car, and who is now staying at CHNK until he can get a continuance in his trial. There's another one that I'll call Jesse. Now, Jesse is making a transition from being male to being female. Now, for reasons that I still don't understand, she is still being bunked with the gender that she's being transitioned from. As I said before, there was occasional oppositional behavior, but things as a whole ran fairly smoothly in the day-to-day life of the residents at the Children's Home in Northern Kentucky. That is until mid-March. Now, while what was then called the novel coronavirus had been making news since February, when several cruise ships were being refused to dock in American waters, it wasn't until the middle of March when there were reports that there were virus in all 50 states, and a state of emergency was declared. Subsequently, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear issued a mandatory lockdown of the entire state. All non-essential commerce would be curtailed, and citizens were asked to quarantine within their own homes until further notice, adding a new term, sheltering in place, to the public lexicon. Now, at first, we ordered every resident to their rooms except for visits to the bathroom and individual visits to the kitchen during mealtime. We did this until we knew that everyone was negative, because some boys had day passes just the day before the order was given. That particular time was incredibly stressful, as anybody who's ever grounded a teenager well knows. Thankfully, everybody was negative, so the boys were eventually let out of their what was essentially solitary confinement. During this time, new protocols were in place for staff, including health self-assessments, as well as having our temperature taken before and after clocking in and out. While the residents were no longer in solitary, confined to their own rooms, there were no more trips to Walmart, no more basketball games in the Wise Gym. The gates of Chunk Burlington campus was ordered shut, period. Now, at first, the guys greeted this news with the dedicated nonchalance and sarcasm that teenage boys are dedicated to. Nobody wanted to seem weak in the presence of their peers, so everyone acted that while not being able to go outside sucked, it didn't emotionally affect them at all. However, it didn't take until early April for the facade of teenage unflappability to begin to show cracks. More incidents of verbal and physical hostility arose as the residents became more and more prone to the irritation due to the pressures of lockdown. More and more of what the organization calls intervention holds were deployed by staff in order to keep things from escalating. Tensions were indeed running high. Also during this time, my family and I finally caved and went ahead and got Netflix along, with everyone else. I mean, why not? We're not going anywhere, right? I began binge watching a show called Orange is the New Black. It's a dramedy that's set in a women's penitentiary. I began seeing unfortunate parallels between the correction officers I watched on the show and what residential specialists were doing at Chunk. Both of our main functions were to keep inmates/residents in line and following the rules. We met very rarely with their psychiatrists and their caseworkers, and we have very little power or influence over their rehabilitation/flourishing. The more I watched and reflected, the more concerned I became. I began to think of ways not only to relieve the tension we were all feeling, but to allow the residents at least some sense of agency during this stressful time. I've been reading Unitarian and Universalist history, and I came across an early 19th century Bostonian Universalist minister named Charles Spear. Now, Spear was an advocate for various social justice issues, including abolition, but it was prison reform that Reverend Spear is most known for. He was an early opponent of the death penalty, as well as the opinion that confinement should have the goal of rehabilitation rather than punishment. He founded a journal called The Prisoner's Friend that highlighted the experiences of the incarcerated, as well as ways to improve their lot. As I read, I began to formulate suggestions to present to the Burlington campus's house manager, my boss. Be that as it may, my conversation was postponed by the event that the staff now semi-affectionately called the riot. To make a long story short, what began as two youths AWOLing, that is, going beyond the borders of the fence, became an hours-long campus-wide struggle that entailed property damage as well as numerous fire alarm pulls. Interventions by both the fire department as well as the Boone County Sheriff's Office became necessary. Things eventually calmed down, and a few days later, the organization president sent a debriefing email stating that the behavior we witnessed was, in his opinion, a demonstration of all the pent-up emotion and frustration on the part of our residents. They had been hurting, deeply hurting from the toxic combination of the developments of the outside world, along with the stressors that were going on in their own personal lives. You know, it's not every day that an email from your boss makes you think, but at least for me, in this one instance, it did. The next week, I talked with our assistant house manager while preparing dinner and learned that some changes were already coming down the pike. 2 weeks later, Jesse, who I previously mentioned, who was one of the main fire alarm pullers, was chosen to be our first resident liaison, a person in charge of facilitating communication between residents and staff, as well as residents amongst each other. Soon afterward, Jesse suggested that we put up a cork board for notes and messages that needed to be posted. It was, and it is, a very meaningful part of the dormitory ever since. Another thing that was implemented was taking one of the periods of recreation that we have every day and designating it for a structured activity that made everybody participate. Structured rec, as we now called it, forced everybody to participate in a predetermined project or game. In one of the first structured rec, I, yours truly, was responsible for organizing a game of kickball amongst the teenagers. And while I possess no or little athletic ability, and while not everybody was happy about participating, I actually had to fill in for a kid that stormed off, the entire cottage was able to coalesce and blow off steam together. While the game was mandatory, they were able to find some camaraderie. They had finally begun to shelter in place as a community. You know, when the coronavirus hit, I think it was very easy for us to retreat into ourselves, to focus on how this pandemic affects us, to concentrate our energies on us, or at, the very most, concentrating our energies towards populations that are at risk, but have much more visibility. By working at the Children's Home of Northern Kentucky, I was challenged to think about a population that has zero visibility due to their life circumstances, and how a lockdown can bring immense pressure on a peoples whose liberty have already been severely limited. But as I said before, this is a message of hope. What has inspired me this past half year plus has been seeing the endurance and tenacity of these kids. Through this pandemic, the kids at Shunk have shown a tremendous willingness to bend and adapt as the situation necessitates. They have started to come together as a community and depend on one another during this extraordinary time. They have lessons that they can teach us, if only we choose to hear them. Blessed be, and amen. I'd be happy to now field any questions that you might have in the next several minutes.
If you have a question or comment, you can raise your hand and we can try and see you on your screen, or you can use the chat function that's available to you with Zoom. You welcome any questions or comments.
That was wonderful, Joel. Thank you for sharing your stories, your situation there.
Oh, thank you.
I could listen to more stories.
Bjorn, let's unmute you, or Alan, if you'll help me, or Michael. Unmute.
There, I got her.
Okay. Joel, I thought it was very, very interesting to listen to your description of the kids, but also how you grew in the process of understanding them and working with them. I thought it was very inspirational.
Thank you, Johannes.
And the Kraken.
There you go.
Okay. I listened the other day to, I think it was a podcast on Norwegian prisons and what they're doing, which is when you come in, they try to do root causes. What is it that what is it that you need in order to be able to function in society? And so then they do, if you need anger management, it's anger management. If it's jobs, they have job training, they have all of these things. And actually there's not much about locked in it either. And where they had a recidivism rate closer to the United States, which I think is somewhere between 60 and 80% in prisons, they went down to 20 with this, 15 to 20. So I think, your ideas, your thoughts about what you're thinking about and the rehabilitation part is really strong. And, it's getting these kids ready for society. That's the most important part of what you're doing, I think.
I heard rather the same report. It was on NPR, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was fantastic. And I didn't want to portray where I'm working as a prison. I mean, they meet with their caseworker, which works with them about where they're going to be placed, either with a foster family, their original parents, or even adoption after they get released. And psychiatrists are also available during first shift around 8 to 3 p.m. What they didn't talk about in that NPR episode, and what I was yearning for, is to talk about how they integrated the corrections officer's job with that mission. Because my job at the Children's Home in Northern Kentucky is to basically cook the meals, make sure that the kids are doing their assigned chores, make sure that everything is happening on schedule, and to break up any stressful situations that arise. So what our job is really very much divorced from the mission statement of Children's Home in Northern Kentucky, and that's one of the things that I would like to continue to work on. But thank you. I loved that NPR piece.
Me too.
It should be on npr.org if anyone else is interested.
Andy Rotterman has a question or comment. Andy?
Yeah, hi, Joel. That was interesting. My husband spent his career working at a residential treatment facility for adjudicated boys and
I didn't know.
teenagers, and it was a tough population.
Yeah.
So so it wasn't, I mean, I guess part of yours though is an orphanage as well. But my question is, how long do the boys stay there? Is there a limit to how long they stay there? And then, one of the big problems and frustrations with my husband's work was once the boys got back home, it was the environment was what they often went back to what they knew, because they just went back to, there just wasn't any structure, and there was just so much opportunity to just go back to the old ways. And so I'm wondering first, how long there was a limit how long they would stay at the residential treatment home, and it was open, people could run. Of course, they had orange jumpsuits, but they were able to smuggle in clothes. But anyway, so is there a time limit on how long they're there? And then is there, what is the process once they get back home? If they have a home to go to.
There is not a set by law time limit. We like having kids, even in the long-term facility where I work, there for around 6 months. It's a 5-stage process with certain benchmarks and guideposts. They come in at stage 0 and they leave at stage 5. Now, through their behavior with us, as well as their work with the social work and caseworker, that can fluctuate. Get into a big brawl, you might be at stage 4, now you're back to stage 0, and I agree. Their placement in the community is crucial. Also crucial is, while they're with us, unlearning what they had learned previously while they were on the outside. As to where they're placed, I don't know that aspect of it. But at least during coronavirus, there was a real panic on how are we going to get these meetups to happen? Because usually, they would go for like a weekend trip, to see if it was a good fit. Now we're utilizing Zoom much more, and while it's not ideal, we're finding that, at least by my observation, more people are willing to entertain the idea of a foster kid, because it might sound cynical, much less work is expected of them at the front end. They no longer have to come to the facility. They just have to log on to Zoom.
Yeah.
Sue Klein has a question as well.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment that, first of all, this was a very interesting presentation and well presented, Joel. But what hit me between the eyes was towards the end when you said, this is a group of people that have no visibility. And those are the people that are really, really at risk. because they're not getting the funding, they're not getting the attention, and so on. So that was just really important for me to hear, because I think that there are many marginalized people around. That's really a critical group, and it's important that you have good people working with them. So thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's important too.
Tom Lotman apparently has a question.
Hi, Joel. Thank you. I really appreciated your anchoring your talk in the first two UU principles. I feel strongly that, you know, certainly the virus is contagious, but also respect is contagious. And I think for a lot of young people in a residential treatment facility or incarcerated in any way, other people lose sight of their strengths and only see their vulnerabilities. And the story you gave about Jesse becoming the liaison for the other boys, you know, that is really identifying his strengths. So I think there's a perspective there that ought to be part of the training of every staff. And I think you exemplify that perspective. And I think, you know, your UU heritage is a big part of that. So I really appreciated that connection.
Thanks, Tom. One of the sayings that we have amongst the staff is, we can teach you to cook dinner and to push a mop, but we can't teach you to care. So really it's in screening applicants for the actual job, because I don't think you can teach empathy, or maybe you can. What do I know? But at least initially, when you start with boots running your first shift, that you have to have some kind of empathy already there.
Linda also has a question.
Joel, it was a great service and message. Right from the beginning, I hated the idea of a facility being used as punishment, and to have a drastic difference between Burlington and Covington. But I can understand realistically where there would have to be some stricter places. Was there ever an opportunity for someone who was perhaps sent to the Burlington facility to ever transfer through good behavior to the Covington facility?
While Covington gets the lion's share of the kudos and the money, I don't, from what I've heard, Covington is not necessarily a happier place.
Oh.
I know of 2 residents that have matriculated from Burlington to Covington, but those situations, and of course you have to document everything, document. Their behavior showed a consistent and immediate mental health need. So they were transferred to the Covington campus because they're better suited to that population. In Covington, you get out earlier, statistically speaking, but it's not necessarily a less stressful ride.
It's heartbreaking.
Carol's got her hand up.
From Carol Womendorf, and we'll have that be the last question or comment.
Joel, are there any donations or needs or anything for the home that you know, games or things that folks are looking for as far as possibilities to help?
Yeah, the Children's Home of Northern Kentucky is a total 401k. I mean, any donations that you have are well accepted. In the next day, everyone on Facebook, I hope. I'll post on Facebook, or I'll send maybe Doug an email and he can send it to everybody, the ways to help out. Thank you, Sue. I should have included that in the body of my sermon.
Well, thank you very much, Joel, and thank you to everyone with some very good questions and comments. Let us now move into the time in our service when we give back to the work of the Gathering in Northern Hills, and certainly a part of our work is to support organizations in the community that do similar work to what Joel was doing, and that is helping, caring for, and supporting youth in need. So this is a time when you may give back. You may use your Givelify app, which hopefully many of you have installed on your smartphones. If you have not, please do so. It certainly does not have to be, or should not probably be, the regular way you would donate to the congregation, but it is a good way to donate from time to time to monthly sparks, or to occasions like this, to quote unquote drop $5, $10 in the digital offering basket. But now let us please have a time of offering while Michael and his wife, or his fiancée, Julia Burrows, perform the song Gridlock.
Yeah, so I just want to real quick say, I got with Joel and talked to him about the music we wanted to do for this service, and he said was the same thing he said in his message, which is that it's a message of hope. And this was a song that my fiance and I wrote just to give us a little hope when quarantine started, because we found ourselves just feeling really trapped, and so this was kind of a song of hope for us. It's called Gridlock, so I hope you enjoy it.
Got this done. I guess I should say something, but I can't. I can't remember how long we've spent fighting for inches, changing lanes to try and pull ahead. You still can speak the words you left unsaid. The problems that we watered, grew, and fed. But I'm tired. Can we please pull over instead? But we're gridlocked. You tell me I'll be fine, but baby I'm inclined to disagree. At a full stop, the burden is on my mind. It's me who's out of line, I guarantee. So let me be. Should be angry, but I can't, 'cause I reaped and sowed my seeds of discontent against your wishes. Not even someone to resent. Now all these words are seeming hard. Damn, I'm sorry for a dollar. Now my reparations follow quick and turn, but I'm too tired. Like this bridge and watch it burn. I guess we're gridlocked. You tell inclined to disagree. At a full stop, the burden is on my mind. It's me who's out of line, I guarantee. I'm just Gridlock. It's my end of the line. Oh, I knew one day if I'd catch up with me. At a full stop, bridge by inch, line by line. Still I've got one half a line to drop full speed, but just let me be. Just let me be. Just let me be.
Hit spacebar.
Thank you, Michael and Julia. Very nice. Let us now move into our time we do every week where we're able to share a joy in our lives or a sorrow in our lives. And you may use the chat feature as a part of Zoom, or you may raise your hand and we will call on you and unmute your microphone. If you have a joy or sorrow you would like to share now, please do so. Alan, are you seeing anyone?
Last night, kind of had been in the house for like too many days in a row or something, and a friend told me there was a block party where people were mostly masked and kind of staying on their yards, but there was a band, and it's called the Swag Band, and we went down and heard that for maybe an hour in the evening, and it was really nice and just fun to see people kind of relaxing and connecting. I'd never heard them before. They were great.
Very nice. Anyone else? I do want to bring everyone's attention, perhaps not to either a joy or a sorrow, but to a fellow member who could probably use a bit of connection, an email, a text, or a phone call just to say thinking about you and how are you, and that would be Paul Miles. We don't see him too often on Zoom, but he is someone who would enjoy probably some kind of a connection with any one of our members, any one of you. Let us now move to our concluding hymn, Guide My Feet, number 348 in your hymnals. The lyrics will be on your screen. And Michael.
Oh, I don't want to run. There's rest in vain. 1, 2, 3, 4. Guide my feet while I'm on this race. Now guide my feet while I'm
Thank you, Michael. For my closing words this morning, I'll lead us in a brief responsive prayer. And at appropriate times, please repeat with me the phrase from our unison affirmation, "We commit to the future of all children." I begin my closing words. We offer thanks this morning for the words and the life example of our fellow member, Joel Araujo. Like him, our concern and our love extend not only to our own children and grandchildren, but to those in our community and wider world. And now let us repeat, we commit to the future of all children. We especially noted in these times of pandemic and protests for racial justice, too many children live in poverty, sickness, homelessness, or suffer the sting of racism. And we commit to the future of all children. We're grateful this community volunteers for and supports with its money organizations dedicated to teaching, empowering, and loving and sheltering youth who have none of the advantages many of our children enjoy. Let's take from this service today a renewed dedication, like that of Joel Araujo, to work for a society that deeply values the health and education and opportunities available for its children, especially those youth who suffer. And in doing so, we commit to the future of all children. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Joel, Michael, and I wish you each much peace and joy. And now,